Welcome to the closing session. What we're going to do during this session is just reflect back a little bit about some of the things which have happened during these 2 days, communicate between the streams a little bit. So if there was a session that you missed and you felt really sad, you'll hear about 7 words that will sum up that session from these highly talented people down here. So that'll be good. So now we're going to do a little bit of feedback. Now, you probably know that various people have been reporting on the sessions, and they have then been handing their reports to the fabulous and lovely summarising team here, who are now going to tell you what happened in all those sessions. So we're going to start with the Equitable Access Universal Services stream, and that's going to be reported on by the truly lovely, ever youthful Bronwyn and Matt team. You have one mic between you, no fighting.
Bronwyn can go first while I stand here and look beautiful and lovely.
So we had 6 sessions in our Equitable Access and Universal Stream. Right to Water and Sanitation started us off, and we heard about public toilets in Bangladesh and the fact that they should be treated as a public service, not as a public business, and the unintended inequalities that occur when they're treated as a business. We also heard about the motivating effect of hearing children's voices in improving WASH access, and also some examples of the ongoing challenge it is to develop processes to hear marginalised voices. In Achieving Universal Access session, we heard about hard-to-reach communities in Indigenous Australia and floating villages in Cambodia, and the challenge of translating often very brilliant ideas that are being implemented by NGOs and making them happen at scale. There was also a fair bit of debate around the tension between equality and efficiency, reaching everybody. Another session, mental hygiene management. Very interesting session, new one for the conference and very topical at the moment. We heard about the importance of engaging men and boys in the process and how many aspects need to be considered when implementing menstrual hygiene management in schools, which highlighted the need for integrated programming, recognising that no one agency can tackle these issues on their own.
Thanks, Bronwyn. I thought that Barbara's challenge of summing up in 7 words was a bit easy, so I thought I'd just pick 1 word per session. The first session was about gender and disability, and the word I came up with there was relationships. And we looked at a framework for both thinking about gender in particular, but applicable to disability, thinking about how we manage that and how we might measure it, that had a whole aspect of looking at relationships. And that also applied to the examples we had of a large-scale gender program in Pakistan and disability in East Timor and the work in Nepal. So relationships being central to driving change for gender and disability. Then in our pro-pause session, the word I came up there was leadership. And but what stuck in my mind most there was that it's now easier in a WASH conference to drop in the word shit than it is to drop in the word subsidy. And that that maybe something around leadership, around subsidy might be important. And that we've got the concept there also that we'd been flogging a dead horse for 40 years, perhaps around hand pumps, perhaps for a lack of leadership, and the idea that having the government involved and the government driving leadership is really important as well. In the last session on measuring and monitoring change, the word there is definition. So and the slogan that came out of that for me, which was really good, was that the conference theme is it's not perfection for everyone everywhere, but it's for, I've got to check, everyone everywhere, and that how we define levels of access are really important, and what the definitions we use have a big impact on how we measure the change that we're all working towards. Thanks.
Excellent, thanks. Pop it down there, I'll feedback with it. That'll be bad. Okay, that's great. I'm now going to invite Yael Velleman from WaterAid UK to come and talk about the Achieving Health Outcomes stream. I do just want to very specifically thank Yael, though, because this stream was originally championed by James Wicken from WaterAid Australia. He found us so impossible to work with that he emigrated. And he invited David Shaw to take over his role with WaterAid Australia, and he was so terrified at working with us that he has pretended that he is unable to get a visa to come to Australia. So in the absence of James and David, Yael very, very generously agreed to step in and do this extremely difficult job. So I really do thank you very much, Yael, for doing this. It's great. Can you manage the mic and the thing?
I think so. Well, that's just a really great sorry, this thing is switched off. Yeah, technology. It's a good way of saying I'm third choice.
Oh, no!
No, just kidding. Just kidding. Of course not. I'd like to say I was involved before David. Never mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do I summarize all of the things we've learned in 5 minutes? It's going to be hard, but I'll try. So just starting from the point that Jamie made very early on in the conference, it's not just about diarrhea. And I hope the health stream has given everyone a really good vocabulary to go and speak to the health system with. So we learned about the importance for maternal mortality outcomes, for stunting, for quality of healthcare services, really, really important. This is where it hurts the health system the most. And for disease management, both at home and in healthcare facilities. And as Jamie said, really achieving good health outcomes through WASH will require doing good WASH for everyone, everywhere, always. So very different to the kind of programming we're used to doing sometimes in the health sector. In the WASH sector, present company excluded, of course. Nutrition and neglected tropical diseases, I'm going to bung them together because I don't have time to do otherwise. But I think they've got very interesting commonalities. In both of those disease or health communities, there's increased recognition that without water, sanitation and hygiene, those communities will not be able to meet their own targets. In the case of nutrition, it's eliminating stunting, which is really the last mile for the nutrition sector, and it's a long mile to go. For neglected tropical diseases, it's disease elimination. For example, eliminating trachoma by 2020. Impossible to do without WASH. So increasingly, before this switches off, they're turning to the WASH sector for answers. There's challenges in the existing approaches in both of those, so heavy reliance on inputs and donated drugs. And that's obviously a clash with the sector that can't even mention subsidies, as someone just said. And there was a big issue around, is it integration that we need to do, or is sometimes co-implementation and coordination enough? And we really need to think a lot more about that. In terms of maternal mortality, that was a real mind-blower, I think, for everybody. Just to remember that we've known for 200 years that lack of hygiene at birth kills mothers every day in every country that we work in. So the three key themes that come out of the entire stream. The first one is evidence. How much of it do we need in order to act? And I would urge all of us to focus on doing stuff while we're also looking for evidence. So not having all the evidence we need is not an excuse to not do more. And to evaluate what we're doing in a good and robust way. The second one is shared vision. We talked a lot about the need to have the same objective to be able to coordinate. So we can't expect WASH actors at country level to achieve disease outcomes if they don't set out originally to achieve those disease outcomes. But importantly, we do need to make sure that we don't just need to have WASH mentioned in policies, but we actually need to have it implemented. And then the third element is that talking to ourselves isn't going to get us very far. So we really need to have that common language with the health actors and really use the things that really appeal to where they're struggling the most. Stunting, dealing with diarrhea morbidity, not just diarrhea deaths, issues of disease elimination and eradication and healthcare quality. So to finalize, I agree with Jamie's comment at the start that we really need to focus on the glass half full by talking to the health system about how WASH can actually contribute to their achieving their own outcomes. And not to forget, we actually need the health people too. When it comes to behavior change, expertise, etc., it's the health sector that really has a lot that we can learn from. But whatever we do, it has to result in real programming, real money, good targeting by everybody. I hope that's a good message to finish on. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Yael. And I am really sorry I played down your role. That was awful. Especially she's so close to me. So now I'm going to try not to offend Juliet as I invite her up. Juliet Willetts from the Institute for Sustainable Futures, which, may I say, does have the most brilliant name of almost any organisation I know. And she's going to talk about the Sustaining Services and Outcomes stream.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. So, a very wide-ranging stream. So, probably, I don't know, maybe I'm not sure who had the hardest job in trying to draw together all these disparate threads. So I'm going to take you through the different sessions that we had on sustaining services. But the overarching, I think, narrative is about we're shifting, we're not focused on access, we're focused on service delivery. And that permeated all the sessions, and it's just about how do we do that, how do we make that shift. So in the session that was focused on climate change, we heard about the fact that climate change is now, it's not in the future. If we look at the Pacific Islands, and we heard that this morning, it's already happening. It isn't a question as should we think about it or not, we have to think about it. And so we heard about the ways to do that, to think about domestic water use within the wider catchment, and concepts of resilience, risk that need to inform our planning. So we need to evolve the way we think about domestic water and sanitation needs within a wider context. We also heard about the need to focus on partnerships to deal with that complexity, that we can't do it as a sector alone, which sounds similar to health, but it's another direction where we need to integrate. A session on urban water and sanitation, the idea that we heard from Almud yesterday morning, the scale of the issue, and it sounded promising that perhaps we're going to get faster development of enabling environment because it's so obvious that these issues need dealing with now. And questions around public finance, how and when this can be invested and the need for it, particularly in sanitation infrastructure, and an area of debate about whether affordability is an issue in urban areas or not. And the main thing being that we need a clarity of mandates, who is responsible, and again, particularly for sanitation, who is responsible for providing those services. A session on optimising roles between the public sector, the private sector, civil society and donors. The key message, I think, from that was about the blurry boundaries between these different sectors and the need for good communication across them, combinations of them working together in different forms. And one example that stood out for me was the idea of a system for many thousands of people, which was government-supported community management. So, we think of community management as sometimes at small scale, but these models can exist at all different scales, and the way the responsibilities are split between the different sectors can look very different from place to place, and there's no right or wrong answer about which way it should look. A session on sanitation beyond toilets. Now, finally, we're there, yeah? Post-2015, we are not just looking at how many toilets people have. What happens to the waste? So that session brought up the issue of decentralised systems, smaller scale systems, other alternatives to sewage, and also, very importantly, how little data we have about faecal sludge management, or about faecal sludge even. Where is it? Where is it going? What do we need to do with it? And the need to bring visibility to that and do analysis that brings visibility of that to policymakers so that we make it an issue that is responded to. Then sanitation marketing. Questions about the need for market research, how challenging it is to do good market research in the kinds of situations that we deal with. Data on costs and very strong variability between the cost of a toilet in one place or another and how that feeds into affordability. And a hot debate, as always, about subsidy or no subsidy. And I wasn't at that session, but the notes tell me that perhaps we're moving away from thinking about household subsidies to ways of subsidising the market. So an evolution of thinking there. There's still, I think, a lot more to be done. Now, lastly, a session on monitoring sustainability. where we focused first on the way in which various donors and organisations are thinking about looking at the sustainability of systems which they themselves fund or implement, looking at them 1 year later, 5 years later, 10 years later, and what can we learn and how might that change the way we work. But out of that also a recognition that that's not really the bigger picture. And it almost might be a diversion, that our focus needs to be on national monitoring systems and not even just national ones. What do these national systems look like at district level, where that information that's collected about functionality of systems, about coverage, and when that data needs to inform decisions, how can we make sure that those district level systems both work for those at district level but also link to national level. And finally, in that session, we also touched on ICT and on the latest, greatest tools. Fantastic to hear about ways of getting consumer complaints in large scale and how to then respond to those complaints through smartphones, different new methods. And the need to think about how we now try and embed those ICT, those advances, in the way our systems are governed. So I'd say overall I don't have single words nor 3 points, but I think for me this stream about sustaining services, it comes back to the different institutions and the way governance works across them in order to sustain outcomes into the future. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Juliet. That was a tour de force. And those last little pieces, of course, we only got that information about 15 minutes ago, so well done, you guys. Thanks very much. It also makes my job a lot easier because I've got to write the summary of the conference, so I'm basically going to pin these people down to their chairs now and get all that information out of them. Just to let you know that there will, of course, be a synthesis report for the conference, and it will be available as soon as I finish it. Now, at the beginning of the conference, none of you realised quite how lucky you were, because one of the things I had to do was pick on 3 volunteers who are not part of the organising committee to also just reflect back a little bit about the experience of the conference. And I'm now going to invite them up one by one just to tell you, just in 2 or 3 minutes, kind of the highlights for them or the sort of response that they have from the conference. Because otherwise, how can you believe us? It's our conference. So I'm looking around hoping that these people are here and they haven't run off. The first person I'm inviting up is Mrs. Dripayanti, who's a student at Griffiths. I hope she's here. Ah, there she is. Hooray. Do come up to the stage. So I literally asked these very, very generous people, or would you like to do it from there? No, come up. We can even offer you a comfortable chair. or you can stand. No, don't be embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed. Here. Big round of applause for Mrs. Dripayanti. You don't need to talk for long, as long as you can bear to look at them.
I don't know. I will be in front of this massive. Hi, I'm Yanti. I'm a student from Griffith University here in Brisbane, but I'm originally come from Indonesia. It's been a very great experience to be in this conference and meet all of these very committed experts and actors in these sectors. And as you know, as a student, I usually attend a conference that are participated by researchers from university. They certainly talk in a different way. But here we have different mix of participants from donors, researchers, practitioners, and all of these actors in the sectors. And you can see the discussions are very real, lives. And if I could write or transcribe all of the discussion, I could have a very good report, FGD report to my supervisors. And it's a very real discussion that I found with many different perspectives from these different stakeholders in the sectors. For me, it's a very valuable experience to broaden my personal understanding on the sectors and help me to continue my study in these sectors as well. So I would like to thank to the organizers and congratulate for being able to connect all of us here. and to share the experience and keep optimists to develop these sectors. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Big round of applause. And for a small fee, you can have the proceed. No, that's wrong. Sorry. And my second volunteer was Pakeko Purwanto from the Indonesian National Planning Agency. It was a bit of an accident that I got two Indonesians. That just happened by chance. No, you have to come. No. There's no escape. There's no escape. Pakeko's from Bapenas. He's well known for being very shy and not wanting to stand on the stage.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised when Yanti came up. And then the idea is maybe I have stepped down because maybe somebody else coming from other region. Because maybe the people coming outside, South Asia, saying that, Australia pick Indonesia. So they will be speak nice. Well, I promise I won't. Because I really enjoy this seminar, this conference, especially the day one. Because at that time I attend Right to Water, and then the second one is Universal Access. If somebody asking me whether I enjoy this conference, I just say that yes, I enjoy, not very enjoy. Why? Because as a government, I would like to have kind of like discussion in macro perspective, not only the micro one. When you talk about right to water, and then colleague mentioned about the discussion, it's all about the micro perspective of right to water. How you can define right to water? Is it 24/7? Is it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day? It's also the same with universal access. Does it mean that we have to have it, we have to have it at the time we want, but maybe at the time we don't want, we don't need to have it? That's coming to my question in the universal access discussion. Do we have to think about efficiency versus equity? Which one is better? As a government, usually you have problem with budget. You have problem with resource. You have to tackle the most possible issues that you'll be able to tackle. Well, anyway, 2 minutes already.
Yeah.
I congratulate the organizer, all the resource person, and also thank you very much for DFAT to sponsoring me coming here. Thank you very much. See you in 2016. Okay.
Sorry, Marcus. And finally, I promise you, although I love Indonesia dearly, not another Indonesian. So I'd like to, I'm looking around hoping he's here too. Is Mr., I'm going to send his surname, Mr. Happy Nyasulu is here. Is he here? Oh, thank goodness for that. And Happy is from Zambia, you'll be delighted to know, not from Indonesia, and works with Oxfam.
What can I say? I was talking to my 3 colleagues we came with from Africa, from Zambia. That is David and Mr. Banda. I was asking them for Barbara to pick me, what was the determinant factor? So then I was like, I think it's the name, because I'm called Happy. So so I think that's why she picked on me. Anyway, it's been a very exciting journey. And I've enjoyed. The sessions have been excellent. The organizing team, they've really done a good job. And I hope maybe after 2016, we can lobby that it can also take place in Zambia, the WASH conference. Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you so much.